Hello everyone and welcome to Big Rock Moto. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Today I'm in beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada, and I'm at the North American press launch ride for the new BMW CE 02. So what do you call this? They don't really want us to call it a scooter. It's like an urban mobility vehicle, and BMW claims that this is an electric parker vehicle. So if you've always been dreaming of an electric powered parker style urban motorcycle scooter, now is your time to act and go purchase one. So this is so we'll try to do this in a serious way, okay? This vehicle costs about $8,000 in the Highline trim. There's also, you can save $500 by getting a lower trim, so around $7,500. It has 14-inch wheels, kind of like a scooter would. But it's all electric powered, right? So the battery is somewhere around 3 to 4 kilowatt hours battery, and we'll talk about that a little bit. Now this is supposed to compete with, it's designed to compete with a 125 scooter. So a 125cc scooter, so I don't know, Honda Monkey, Honda Grom, whatever, something in that range, all right? Now you might be saying, well, it's $8,000 and those scooters are like $3,000 or $4,000. Well, that's true. So that is a consideration. Now everybody wants to talk about range. We got to talk about range, but actually you got to talk about efficiency, and that's the thing that people don't talk about enough with electric cars and electric motorcycles. Efficiency determines your range. Efficiency multiplied by their battery capacity determines your range. So efficiency is going to be measured in miles per kilowatt hour. So let's just assume it has about a 3 kilowatt hour battery. If you get 10 miles per kilowatt hour, then you could do the math and you'd have a range of about 30 miles, right? So I have the efficiency, I reset it, so I'm getting 14 miles a kilowatt hour the way we're riding right now. With an electric vehicle, just like with an ICE vehicle, it's greatly going to be affected by how you ride it, how fast you're going, how hard you accelerate. Do you have a headwind? All these things affect your efficiency. So efficiency is the same idea whether you're talking about a gas-powered, an ICE engine, or an electric vehicle. So that's going to determine things. Now, the essential challenge with electric motorcycles and electric cars to the same degree, but it's made worse than a motorcycle, is energy density, right? So let's talk about energy density. If you take a gallon of the volume of a gallon of gasoline, right? You can kind of picture the volume that takes up. How much energy is in that? And then you take a battery of that same size, the volume of what a gallon of gasoline would be, the energy density of that amount of battery is simply far less. And that's the biggest problem we have, is the energy density of that amount of battery versus that amount of gasoline. It's a factor of like 2 or 3 more in terms of the gasoline. That's why the world still runs on internal combustion for the most part, or diesel, I guess, because it's, energy density is better. So with a battery of the size that this has, if all this battery space here was fuel, you would have a range of probably 100 or 150 miles. With this vehicle, you have a range, they quote 50 miles, about 50 mile range, 55 mile range, but again, it depends on how you ride it. If you twist the throttle like this all the time, your efficiency is going to suck and you're not going to get that range. So you'd have to ride very eco-conscious and slow to get that amount of range. So that's the whole energy density thing. So if that could ever be solved with a different battery chemistry that would equal the energy density of gasoline or diesel, then we'd be in business. The other two things we look at are cost It's expensive to produce these batteries, even though they have less energy density than gasoline or diesel. Still very expensive to produce them. So that makes the cost of the vehicle, the motorcycle or scooter in this case, very high relative to what you think it would be. So that's another challenge. The third challenge we have is, Jesus, music is so loud, I can't even talk. The other challenge that we have with electric motorcycles and electric cars to some extent, but not as bad, I suppose, is how are you going to charge it, right? So there's charging speed, and then there's convenience of charging. Can you actually charge it somewhere, right? So I think my concern with a vehicle like this is that if it's designed for people in urban areas who may live in an apartment or something like that, you don't maybe have a garage that you can charge it in. Well, there's no removable battery, so how are you going to get the battery charged if you live in an apartment, you don't have a parking garage with a plug? So they should, in my opinion, like, where's the removable battery that you can take up to your apartment and charge it and then drive to work or ride to work in the morning? So that's like a huge thing. You're scratching your head like, well, okay, well, how am I going to charge it? This has to be plugged. This plugs into a normal 110 outlet. It doesn't take level 2 or level 3 charging or anything. That brings me back to the charging speed. So the charging speed of electric, car, electric motorcycle is determined a lot by the chemistry of the battery, but also by the voltage. All right. So these bikes, first of all, the charger's got to take the AC power from the wall and convert it into DC and get it into the battery, right? Because the battery's DC, the power that it's putting out. So that charger, there's some efficiency loss in the charging, but then the voltage too. So higher voltage battery or system is going to be able to charge faster, because voltage, think of it like as how wide is the pipe for the power, how wide is that pipe where the power is going through. Think of voltage that way. So like these are lower voltage, they don't have like 800 volt architecture like some of the modern electric cars do. So the charging speed, this takes 3 to 4 hours to fully charge it. So 3 to 4 hours to charge just to only go whatever it says, 50 miles, or in the case that I'm getting, maybe 40 miles at best of range. Whereas if you buy a 125 scooter, not only is that vehicle half the cost of this, but you can fill it up in about 30 seconds at a gas pump and go another 100 to 150 miles on 1 or 1.5 gallons of fuel. So obviously it all boils down to, we're trying to figure, all of us here at the launch are trying to figure out, like, what is BMW going for here. I think there is a target audience for this. I think that it's not that large, but it is interesting. I actually think the bike looks pretty cool, and actually the quality is very good. It has good features, good safety features. It rides really well. It's fun to ride it. Functionally it's actually great, except, well, for the range issue that we've been talking about. So I don't know, let me know what you all think, but is something like this great to run around urban environments? Yeah, it is, because they do. Now, do they actually help keep the air clean? Well, that's a good argument. I mean, yes and no, because it still takes, you still have to generate the power to charge an electric vehicle, and there are going to be some kind of pollution and emissions from generating that power. It's energy either way you go, whether you're dealing with gas, diesel, oil, or you're trying to charge up one of these. I mean, it's all energy at some point, and there's losses there, there's pollution there. So an electric motor is more efficient in turning a certain amount of a certain amount of energy into forward motion. It's more efficient than a gas or diesel engine. Okay, so that's good. But then you got to generate this power. So you're really reducing emissions. You're reducing tailpipe emissions, which can outsource the energy from an urban area to somewhere else where the power plant is. So you might clean up the air in the city because we're not having any emissions out of our tailpipe, but somewhere there's emissions to do this, and we're just outsourcing it maybe somewhere else where someone else has to deal with it. Okay, so that's something you gotta think about, right? It's not all rainbows and puppies and, oh, we're saving the world. No, that's not the case. And any expert who knows about electric vehicles will talk about this. And if you think that hydro or solar or wind is totally clean energy, that's false. It is not. There's still waste and pollution involved in that. But that's a whole nother video, isn't it? So I actually like to talk about all this stuff and think about it, and test this stuff. I think it's really super interesting. I know, people get, kind of get into different arguments about this stuff, but I just think it's cool to talk about. So yeah, we've got an $8,000 electric motorcycle that can go about 40 to 50 miles. So that's what this is, and that's what I'm trying to review. But I think this is turning into a video talking about the challenges of electric propulsion in general. So anyway, forgive all of the sort of chatter, but I think it's just something that we all need to be talking about and thinking about. Little walk around on a CEO2. The wheels are interesting, kind of a solid design, maybe for efficiency, aerodynamics. A light assembly back here, grab handles for the passenger. The foot pegs, front and back, when you're riding it, you can actually use either one, but this is designed for the passenger. It says right here, E-Parker, so that's interesting. Got this interesting kind of pass-through area here. The seat is kind of hard and flat, not the most comfortable thing. Inverted forks. Actually, the suspension looks really good. Pretty nice tires. What are these tires? They're actually Michelin tires. LED headlight, of course, kind of this front little instrument area. Maybe this is some cooling going in there, like the battery. You can see kind of the frame here in the front where they've attached the rider pegs. Then around this side you can see it's belt drive, so you've got that. Some rear shock mounted on this side here. I don't know what this is. I need to get an answer to that, but not really. Oh, it says something about umbrella, or I don't know, whatever that is. So, I live here in the United States where we have a lot of privileges, we have a lot of wealth and things like this. But I've traveled to developing nations, and I understand urban mobility and the challenges of that in urban areas, highly population-dense urban areas in developing nations, right? You have an issue of pollution, right? So, like, I spent a good amount of time in Vietnam and in Hanoi, okay? And what I noticed, I was like, wow, the air is like incredibly, the particulate pollution was immense and unhealthy, right? And people die, millions of people die from the air pollution, right? So how do you solve that? Well, you're not going to solve it with this, because the problem is, the population there, like in Vietnam, generally, the average person is, I think they buy their gas-powered scooters, whether it's, I don't know, Honda, Yamaha, whatever it is, for like $1,000 or $2,000, and they last almost forever, and they sip gasoline. So it's economical. That's what you can afford. That's practical. You can't afford $8,000 to go 30 miles and then spend 3 hours plugged in to charge it. That's absurd. So this is not the answer to that. Although if everyone in those kind of cities rode electric scooters, you would clean up the air in that area. But then how are you charging it? How are you affording the vehicle? How does that all work? Like, the economics don't play out. They don't work out. It all comes down to economics and money in the end, right? And so it's not that people want to be dirty and pollute and things. It's that they don't have the money, the wealth, to the privilege to like do things in a cleaner way. So we need to respect that and understand that and have sympathy for that, right? Sure, wealthy people in America can drive and buy an electric car and think they're being clean, and they outsource the pollution out of the city that they live in. But this is not a global solution. So anyway, that's just the thought that I kind of had. Like, if you could get people on electric bikes in these polluted cities, yeah, you would probably clean up the air. Of course, there's the trucks and transport and freight and shipping and all, and factories that are a huge part of it, and you got to deal with that somehow. But yeah, you could. But the economics don't work at all, right? Especially with a rich person's toy like this, and that's effectively what the CEO2 or the CEO4 or a Zero motorcycle. These are rich person's play toys, right? Effectively, they're not transport solutions at a global scale. They don't claim to be, and they're not. Anyway, so riding around Las Vegas, I do like riding. I mean, this is fun. The seat's kind of hard and uncomfortable. I mean, it feels very light, low to the ground. It feels like basically riding an e-bike, sort of, with more power, but it's a full-on motorcycle. Now, you could get an electric bicycle. You wouldn't have insurance, you wouldn't have the registration fees, you wouldn't have a lot motorcycle license requirement. So, and that's what people do. That's what people are going to do, right? They already have. They're buying electric bicycles because of those reasons. I have an electric bicycle. It's fantastic. Actually, I have a couple different e-bikes. They're amazing. So again, all of this is kind of like, well, where does something like this fit in? And I don't think it really does, except in very, very small applications for a few people. And that's fine if you're one of those people. That's great. There's nothing wrong with it. Anyway, those are my thoughts for now. But I'm going to continue to ride this around Vegas, and maybe we'll check back in later. So talking a little bit more about the actual CEO2, you've got controls here, you've got heated grips, the stop-start switch, the ignition button, basically. Riding modes, it does have riding modes. The riding modes change the throttle response. They also change the regenerative braking, the engine braking, which I think it has regen braking, correct? Well, I'll put that below. I think it's regen braking, but the modes will change how much, if you coast or whether you roll off the throttle and it brakes. If you've done electric cars, they might call one pedal driving, regen braking, whatever. It's cool because instead of applying the brake, you can just roll off the throttle and it'll kind of stop. It'll kind of come to a stop, and the energy hopefully goes back to the battery, although I don't know if the CEO2 has that ability. You got turn signals over here. You've got some menu systems. The ride modes have a funny name like flow, surf. I don't know. They're trying too hard to like appeal to like whatever cool rich kids they think are going to buy this. But anyway, it's got those modes. The rear brake is where the clutch would normally be on a typical motorcycle, and then scooter style, right? So rear brake, front brake there. The brakes are great. I mean, actually, all the components work excellent on this, as they should at this price, and being a BMW. Reverse, it does have reverse. So what you do is you hold that reverse button down, and then you roll the throttle, and you can reverse. That's awesome. I love that. That's super handy. I wish all motorcycles could have reverse. The mirrors are good. I mean, everything's high quality. The acceleration of the bike, I mean, it's strong. Like, even for kind of a lower powered unit, the CEO2, like, the acceleration is good. It'll definitely blow the doors off of the competitive 125 scooter that it's supposed to compete with. That's the advantage of electric motor. They have instant torque, no lag. I mean, it's just boom, you go. And that's great. That's a huge benefit of electric motor versus internal combustion. The power is right away, and there's no waiting. There's less moving parts. There's less maintenance too. I mean, that's a huge benefit of an electric motor vehicle. It's better for everybody, and well, maybe not if you're a mechanic, but like, there's much less to break because there's you don't have all of the millions of little moving parts and valves and pistons and rollers and cams and transmissions and bearings and all of that. That's all gone. It's a much more elegant, simple, refined solution. So that's good. Also, have you thought about the fact that if every vehicle was electric, like, you wouldn't be walking through it. You know how you go to a parking lot and there's like oil all over the ground and there's oil stains and it's just gross, and you're walking through it like, you go to the store and it's just like all the parking spaces are just like gross with like oil stains and grease. Like, well, that's gone if everybody had electric cars and electric bikes. So that's fantastic. I mean, they do have coolant, many of them, because you got to cool the batteries and the charging systems. There might be like hydraulic brake fluid, but in general, there's much less fluid, much less going on. So that's good. But this thing is definitely fun to ride, and it's very zippy. I have a Honda Monkey at home right now that I'm reviewing, and this thing is I don't want to say it's more fun. I mean, it's faster than the Monkey, but I don't want to say it's more fun necessarily, but it is faster to accelerate. Now, a lot of people will say about electric motorcycles, like, you lose the character, the soul, the sound, the roar of the engine and all that. That's a very personal thing, isn't it? Because for me, I don't think that I ride motorcycles to like hear a motor roaring or to smell gasoline, or I don't care about that. Like, I like the feeling of kind of gliding along and flying and being connected to the world and seeing nature, and it's fine. Like, everybody has different reasons they like to ride, and that's personal, and that's totally okay, and there's no judgment. But I didn't grow up in the, Malcolm Smith, whatever era where, whatever the glory days were. I don't have any of that connection because I guess I'm too young. And maybe because I'm a millennial, maybe this is, just my perspective. But it's okay, right? That we all have different perspectives. But to me, I would embrace an electric motorcycle for me personally, because the quietness of it, I love it. I mean, I can see the use for like off-roading, trail, dual sporting on an electric bike would be amazing, because you're not interrupted, you're not disturbing the peace and quiet of other recreational users. You're having less impact, which means the public would be more supportive of it, and the laws of policymakers would be more supportive of it. In towns, you have less noise pollution. I mean, I hate the sound of a loud V-twin motorcycle with, the loud pipes going by on the highway. I just can't stand it. Nobody likes it. Well, the public doesn't like it, and even as a motorcyclist, I don't like that. I don't understand why people like it. I mean, I respect your right to have that for sure, but like, I don't get it. I don't get it at all. So for me, having this quiet gliding feeling, and it does have its own character. You have the torque of the engine, you have this kind of you have this whirring sound that's kind of interesting, kind of futuristic. I think it's super cool, and I really enjoy it. You still get to corner, you still get to be out in the air, but to me it actually makes the motorcycle experience better, not having exhaust fumes, not having a loud engine and rattly stuff. I actually think it improves it, but that's just a very personal thing for me. That doesn't mean I'm telling you what to think. I'm just sharing how I feel about it. That's all that it is. So yeah, for me, this is an advantage, and I would love to have something like this, just with more range and at a lower cost and with faster charging. I mean, again, we got to fix those things, but once that's fixed, man, I'm so ready for it, and I just can't wait for more electric motorcycles in the future. And I don't understand the negativity towards them. I understand the concerns about, the range, the charging, the cost, and all that. I totally get that. Yeah, but I don't understand why you wouldn't want it if those things were solved. I guess that's my thing. But maybe it's an age thing or generational thing. We just have a different perspective on things. Anyway, I just wanted to share that. Right, well, I think I've said my piece on how I feel about electric vehicles, electric motorcycles. I'm not trying to, cause arguments or offend anybody, just sharing how I personally feel about it as a motorcyclist and trying to present some of the pros and cons. Hope it's been informative and useful. As for the CE02, I know I didn't do a great job really reviewing it. I tried to mix that in. The specs of this bike will be below, and any information you want. Of course, you can ask me any questions if you want in the comments. I think the CE02 is really nice. It's fun to ride. The seat's not very comfortable. I like the way it looks. It works really well. It's premium. It's just, you have the price problem, and you have the range problem and the charging problem, and we've already talked about that. So that's up to you whether you think it's worth it. Not up to me to decide. But I hope this was an interesting video. Hope somebody actually watches the video. Thank you so much for watching. Ride safe, and I will see you out there.